अस्सलाम वालेकुम एवरीवन। क्या हाल है? लॉन्ग टाइम। कुछ नहीं आता तो बेटा मैं क्या टिप्स दूँ? मतलब दुआ करें बस। अब आप मसल्ले पे बैठे हैं। वालेकुम सलाम, वालेकुम सलाम। Yeah, that's an important tip. Go study. कोई दुआ या वजीफ़ा बेटा, ये मेरा डोमेन नहीं है। आई मीन जस्ट जनरल दुआ या Okay, so let's start. What do you guys say? Uh, Again, I'm going to be solving past paper questions. All right. I've done a stream, not a stream, but I have posted videos of the concepts. So there's no point in doing the concepts. And I've uploaded the notes and I've uploaded the past papers as well in the description. Let me make sure I've done that. Yeah, I've done that. Okay. I've uploaded the notes as well as the past papers, so download it from there. Okay. Should I spend the night solving past papers or should I revise concepts? But I think you should spend the night sleeping. Okay, you should spend the night sleeping, and that's it. Get a good night's sleep. Okay, it's very important. I'll post a video shortly as soon as we're done with the stream, but I'm telling you guys right now, it's very, very important that you get a good night's sleep. And by a good night's sleep, I don't mean 7 hours. I mean at least 8 to 9 hours. Kinematics. ओ मेरे भाई टाइटल पढ़ लो। ये एड मैथ्स की स्ट्रीम है, खुदा के वास्ते ये मैथ्स की स्ट्रीम नहीं है। मैथ्स के लिए ना पढ़ने बैठ जाना ही है। कैसे लोग हैं यार? ये वही लोग हैं जो पेपर में वही चीज़ पूछते हैं जो सामने लिखी हुई होती है। ये सर फंक्शंस इज इम्पोर्टेंट फॉर टुमारो। आई डोंट नो। आई मीन इफ़ यू आर आस्किंग मी, वो पेपर 1 में आएगा ही नहीं आएगा। आई एम इन नो पोजीशन टू से दैट। ओके, बट कैन इट कम? यस। विल इट कम? आई डोंट नो। ओके. Can you do a live stream on Venn diagrams? Venn diagrams, that's such an easy topic. I have videos on sets and Venn diagram. In fact, I've done a stream on sets and Venn diagram. Yeah, okay, I remember. I've done a stream on sets and Venn diagram. So that should help. Daniel, Vita, please stop spamming. Any moderators here? Can this stream be short? Bhai, kya matlab? I'm not holding a gun to your head and making you watch this stream. You can leave if you want. कैसे लोग हैं? I don't know, Khurram. I don't know if if it comes in P1 or not. It can. Okay, nobody knows. How do we become a mod? Okay, do you want to become a moderator? Okay, I'll make you the moderator. Please be responsible. ऐसा ना आप मॉडरेटर बन के खुद ही स्पैम करना शुरू कर दें. Okay, there you go. भाई आप जाएं उसके जनाजा पढ़ें, आप पूरी तदफीन करके आएँ. Nobody is stopping you, but then you can come back and watch it later. All right. Okay, let's start. Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's start. Okay, so we're doing kinematics. In case you didn't know, here it is. All right, and we're doing past paper questions. Okay, we're only doing past paper questions. No concepts. Why? Because I've taught the concepts already. Okay, so if you guys want, you can watch the video, and that will help. Acha, one more thing, as always. What am I gonna say? Please like the stream if you haven't done that yet. Okay, and do subscribe also if you haven't done that yet. Okay, so let's start with some few old questions. Okay, back in the day when people used to be smart, and then we'll do some easier questions. Some recent questions, some what should I say, for not so smart people. Khair, I'm just joking. Okay. Anyway, so this is a question from May June 2011, paper 1, variant 1. Okay. So it says it says a body moves in a straight line such that t seconds after passing through a fixed point O, its displacement from O is s meters. The velocity v meters from second of the body is such that v is equals to 4 cos 2t. Okay, now. Okay, write down the velocity of the body as it passes through O. Okay, now remember one thing, that whenever the question asks you to find out initial of something, okay, whether it's initial velocity, initial displacement, initial acceleration, and you'll find this in the notes. Okay, I've uploaded the notes. They're very comprehensive. Please make sure to go over them. I'll show you guys the notes in a minute. Just hope I can open them. So मैंने notes upload किए हैं. Like I said, they're very comprehensive. Make sure to go over them. All right. Yeah, here they are. And if you don't want to go over the entire notes, then I would suggest just go over these key points. Okay, they're very, very important. Okay, go over these key points first, understand them. Well, if you understand them, that's great. If you don't, just memorize them. Sadly, there's not much time to go into the depth of everything. Okay, but they're very, very important. Just memorize all of them, and yeah, you should be able to at least solve most of the questions. Okay, now you'll find the notes in the description. Okay, you'll find the notes in the description. You'll find a link, a Dropbox link, and in it you'll find the notes. So here's the first question, which says a body moves in a straight line such that t seconds after passing through a fixed point O, its displacement from O is s meters. The velocity v meters per second of the body is such that v is equals to 5 cos 4t. Okay, write down the velocity of the body as it passes through O. So as an object is passing through O, remember the velocity is going to be equal, the time is going to be equal to 0. I'm sorry, I said velocity. Every time an object passes through O, okay, the time is equal to 0. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to plug in 0 in place of t. So if I do that, if I plug in 0 in place of t, here's what happens. 5 cos 4 into 0. So we get cos 4 into 0, you can work it out, is going to be 1, and 5 into 1 is 5 meters per second. Okay? So what's the key takeaway from this question? As an object passes through O, time is equal to 0. Okay? Then it says find the value of t when the acceleration of the body is first equal to 10 meters per second. So two keywords over here, acceleration and first. Now, why is acceleration a keyword? Because what is it that you think I should do to this equation to turn it into acceleration? What do we do to velocity so that it turns into acceleration? Again, this is also something you'll find in the notes, but this is something that you guys should know as well. Okay, and also, what exactly does the question mean by first? Now, we'll understand what it means by first. Okay. Differentiate. Yep, that's correct. So we'll differentiate it. So dv upon dt is equal to a. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to differentiate cos. Now, what's the differential of cos? The differential of cos is minus sign. Okay, so 5, or you can say 5 as it is. The differential of cos 4t is going to be minus sine 4t times 4. Okay, times 4, which is the differential of the angle. So 5 and 4 get multiplied. So now we're looking at minus 20 sine 4t. Okay. Acha. So just remember this, the differential of sine is cos, the differential of cos is minus sine. This is something that I would suggest that you write down the second you get the paper, because I've noticed students usually tend to mess this up, especially with the minus plus sign. Okay, so this is what the acceleration is equal to. And what is the acceleration equal to? The acceleration is equal to 10 meters per second. Okay, so now sine 4t is equals to what? Sine 4t is equals to minus 1 upon 2 meters per second. Okay, now, so sine is negative. All right. Now, notice that the question has asked us to find out the value of t when the acceleration of the body is first equal to 10 meters per second. अब ये first के पीछे क्या कहानी है? First के पीछे कहानी ये है कि if sine is minus 1 upon 2, that means it's going to be in the third and the fourth quadrant. Okay, so we'll find out alpha. And also remember one thing, that all questions of kinematics are done in radian mode. If you have a question on kinematics where you have trigonometric equation, so this will be done in radian mode. Okay, so let's solve this like we would solve a trigonometric equation. Let's find alpha by taking sine inverse of positive 1 upon 2. So if you take the sine inverse of positive 1 upon 2, okay, so you get 1 upon 6 pi. So that means here is 1 upon 6 pi, and here also is 1 upon 6 pi. Now, technically, 4t is going to be equal to what? Technically, 4t, since we're finding the angle now, is going to be equal to pi plus pi upon 6. That means 7 upon 6 pi. Or the same 4t will be equal to 2 pi minus pi upon 6. So let's work that out. 2 minus 1 upon 6. So that's equal to 11 upon 6 pi. Now, what value am I going to use in order to find out the value of t? Will I use the first value or will I use the second value? What value am I going to use in order to find out the value of t? Yes, okay, so someone's already answered that. That first ka matlab ye hai कि there will be 2 or more values and the smallest t would be counted. Yes, that is correct. There will be 2 or more values and it's the smallest value of t that we're gonna consider. Okay, so that means I will only take 11 upon 6 pi. So t equals to what? T is equals to 7 upon 24 pi. Okay, so we will not take 11 upon 6 pi, we will take 7 upon 6 pi, and that is what we're going to use. Okay. Okay, now here's part 3. Part 3 says find the value of s when t is equals to 5. Okay, so we have the equation for velocity. What do we do to velocity to find displacement? Question for you guys. What should I do to velocity to find displacement? Yeah, Hasib, I like that statement. All of calculus in radian unless the question tells otherwise. Yeah, all of kinematics in radian unless the question tells otherwise. Yes, that is correct. We will integrate. Okay. So we integrate velocity. So this becomes s. Now what's the integral of cos? Integral of cos is positive sine. So 5 sine 4t, but then don't forget to divide it by 4. And every time you integrate, remember, we have what? We have plus c. Now, how do I find out plus c? or how do I find out the value of c? Notice that the question says that it's passing through a fixed point O. Its displacement from O is s meters. So basically, the key word is this, that a body t seconds after passing a fixed point O. So this is a keyword. So every time an object passes through a fixed point O, that means when t is equals to 0, s is equals to 0. Okay. So s is 0, 5 upon 4 sine 4 into 0. So that's as good as sine 0 plus c. So 0 is equals to 0 plus c. Okay. Now don't make this a standard rule that if t is equals to 0 and s is equals to 0, that means c will also be equal to 0, because that's not always the case. Okay. Now, the displacement is equal to 5 upon 4 cos 4t, sorry, sine 4t. Yeah, plus 0 likhe na likhe, it makes no difference. Okay. Now don't get carried away. We need to find out the displacement when t is equals to 5. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to plug in t as 5. So s is equals to 5 upon 4 sine of 4 into 5. Okay. So let's work this out. See what do we get. 5 upon 4 into sine 20. So we're looking at 1.14. 1.14 meters, and that is the final answer. And that's also the end of the question. Now, what are your thoughts? Did you find this easy? I'm eating cupcake dipped in chai. No, I'm not eating butterpuff. Okay. Okay, let me see a question which involves. Alright, this is a good question. This question says a particle moves in a straight line so that t seconds after passing through a fixed point O, its velocity v meters per second is so and so. Find the acceleration of the particle when it is at instantaneous rest. So how do you find out the acceleration of a particle through velocity? And also, what does this mean when it is at instantaneous rest? इसका क्या मतलब है? Fit for O levels? No, this is like, compared to O level kinematics, this kinematics is like on some very serious steroids. Okay, so it's not at all fit for O levels. I would suggest for O levels you watch O level kinematics videos. Okay, that's correct. So at instantaneous rest means velocity equals to 0. So that's what we're going to do. 0 is equals to 2t minus 11 plus 6 over t plus 1. Okay. अच्छा ज़रा space coefficient ही utilize कीजिएगा paper में, alright. So let's shift this over to the left hand side. So 11 minus 2t is equals to 6 upon t plus 1. Okay, now you cross multiply 11 minus 2t into t plus 1 equals to 6. Okay, now 11 into t is 11t plus 11 minus 2t square minus 2t equals to 6. Let me make sure I haven't made a calculation error. Yep, looks good. So minus 2t square plus 9t. 11 minus 6 is 5 equals to 0. Okay. So I'm going to solve this using a calculator to save some time. Okay. कोई कैलकुलेशन एरर तो नहीं है ना यहाँ पे? 11 minus 6 equals to, oh, it's positive 5. Okay, yeah, I fixed that. So minus 2, 9 and 5. Okay, so t is equal to 5 or t is equals to minus 1 upon 2. Now as we know about time, time is a value that is always positive, right? Time cannot be negative. So the value of time that we're going to use is 5, okay? But that's it. That's not it, okay? That does not mean that we're at the end of the question. That we need to plug this back in. We need to first differentiate velocity and then we need to plug it into that equation, okay? So before I can differentiate velocity, let's write it in a way so that it's easy for us to differentiate. So 6 into t plus 1 to the power minus 1, okay? Now let's differentiate this. So dv upon dt is equals to 2 minus 0 minus 1 into 6 is going to be minus 6 t plus 1 to the power of minus 2. All right. Now throw your calculator. Okay, that was funny. Anyway, so this is acceleration 2 minus 6 over t plus 1 the whole thing square. Now what's the value of t that we're going to plug in? We're going to plug in 5. So a is equals to 2 minus 6 over 5 plus 1 is 6 square. Okay, let's find out what the value is. So 2 minus 6 upon 36. So we're looking at 1.83. Let me make sure if that's the correct answer. Yeah, we're looking at 11 upon 6 meter per second square. So there you go. That's that. 7 easy marks, no? What do you guys say? 7 pretty easy marks. Okay, let's do another question. Maybe let's do a graph related question. Okay, let's do this. This is a good question. Let's solve this. Okay. So it says here, a particle p moves in a straight line such that t seconds after leaving a point O, its velocity is given by v is equals to 36t minus 3t square for t is greater than or equal to 0. Then it says find the value of t when the velocity of p stops increasing. Now what does that mean? What happens when the velocity stops increasing? When an object's velocity stops increasing, what do we say? भाई ये मॉडरेटर ने माशाल्लाह मॉडरेटर ने स्पैम करना शुरू कर दिया. क्या बात है भाई. टाइम स्टॉप्स. वाह क्या बात है भाई. टाइम ही रुक जाता है. So when velocity stops increasing, acceleration is equal to 0. Yeah, that's correct. Okay. So that's what we're going to do. We have the velocity, which is 36t minus 3t square. Okay, so now we differentiate this. So dv upon dt is equals to 36 minus 60. So that's acceleration. Okay, so here we have 36 minus 60. Okay. So what we're going to do now is, if the object's velocity stops changing, that means the acceleration is equal to 0. Okay, velocity stops increasing, that means the acceleration is equal to 0. So 0 is equals to 36 minus 6t, which means 6t is equals to 36, t is equals to 6. Okay, so you'll notice that most of kinematics is being able to interpret the question. Okay, instantaneously at rest, maximum velocity, maximum displacement, what else, total distance traveled, stuff like that. So more back to the starting point, you have questions like that also. So which is why, again, very important that you guys go over these notes, especially the key points that I've written. Okay, key points pe वैसे most of the stuff is covered. Okay, but if not, then feel free to add. Yeah, there you go, that's your answer. Okay, then part 2. Part 2 says, find the value of t when p comes to instantaneous rest. Again, instantaneous rest means what? Velocity equals to 0. So 36 minus 3t square is the velocity, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to equate it to 0. 36 minus 3t square equals 0, which means 3t square equals to 36, which means t square equals to 12, which means t is equals to plus positive square root of 12. Okay, remember to take the positive square root of 12, not the negative square root of 12. Okay, because as we know, time is always positive. Okay, so there you go, that's your answer. सही क्या है ना? 36 divided by, अच्छा it's 36t. Oh, okay, 36t है. Uh-oh, don't let that happen to you. 36t minus 3t square. Okay, so 36t minus 3t square equals to 0. So we take 3 along with t common. So we have 12 minus t. So 12 minus t equals to 0. So one value of t that we're going to get is 0, and the other value of t that we're going to get is 12. So the value that we're going to take is 12. So why are we not taking 0? Why are we not taking 0? Okay, let me tell you, let me answer that question. The reason why we're not taking 0 is because the object starts from rest. Okay, now if the object is starting from rest, we're not going to take that, because the question is asking us to find out the value of t when p comes to instantaneous rest. Okay, so that's why. Now here's part 3. Part 3 says, find the distance of p from O when p is at instantaneous rest. Okay, so we know exactly when it's at instantaneous rest. It's at instantaneous rest when t is equals to 12. Okay, now how will I find out the distance from O? Acha, what exactly does it mean when it's asking us to find out the distance of p from O? What exactly do we have to find out? What is distance from the starting point called? Yeah, the question says that. Okay, true. Sir, in your vector stream, no, I did not cover velocity vectors. There's a separate stream for that. You can cover it through that. Okay. Displacement, that's correct. Good job, Rafe, and whoever follows next. Okay, so, but the thing is, we only have the equation for velocity. So what are we going to do to the equation of velocity to get displacement? We're going to integrate it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to integrate velocity to get displacement. So don't mess up on the integration part. 36t square upon 2 minus 3t cube upon 3, and then don't forget the plus c. Okay, so that's displacement. Now isko zara simplify kar lete hain. So we have 36 upon 2, which is 12. No, wait, it's not 12. 36 upon 2 is 18. Yeah, 18t square minus t cube plus c. Now we need a point through which we can plug in, and then we can find out the value of c. Now because it's the equation is derived t seconds after leaving a point O, so that means when t is equals to 0, the displacement is also equal to 0. And you can see that in this case c will also be equal to 0. So that means the displacement ends up being 18t square minus t cube plus c. C hum likhe na likhe makes no difference. All right, so the value that we're going to plug in is 12. So let's plug in 12, see what happens. 18 into 12 square minus 12 cube. Okay, so let's see, what do we get? 18 into 12 square minus 12 cube. So we get 864. Now let's see if that's the correct answer. Yep, that's the correct answer, 864. So there you go, fellas. That's that. I think there's another part. Okay, there's another part to it. Find the speed of p when p is again at O. Okay, so what happens when the particle is back to the starting point? When the particle is back to the starting point, what happens? देखो रेंज के अंदर इंटीग्रेट वेलोसिटी को जब करते हैं when we need to find out the distance traveled. That is when you integrate it within a certain range. Units नहीं लिखा ओहो वैसे इसकी टेंशन नहीं है. There are plenty of other things to worry about. Yep, displacement is equals to 0. Yep, displacement is equal to 0. Okay, so when the particle is back to the starting point, remember it means that the displacement is equals to 0. Alright, so that means we need to first find out the value of t when the particle is back to the starting point. So do we have the displacement equation? Yes, we do. 18t square minus t cube. Up, if this is equal to 0, this is going to give me a few values of t. Okay, so this is the equation that I'm solving now. So I can take t square common. So I'll have 18 minus t, which is equal to 0. So that means t square equals to 0, which leads to t being equal to 0, but that doesn't really help. Okay, and then the other value of t is 18. So this is the point where the particle is back to O. Okay, how is t 12? T is 12. अभी हमने ऊपर निकाला ना t is 12. Okay, just rewind the stream and then watch it from there. Alright, and why C0? Again, I explained that earlier. So just देख लो पीछे करके देख लो ठीक है. Okay, now this is not the end of the question. Now we need to find out the speed. Okay, now because we need to find out the speed, that means if our answer turns out to be negative, we will give it as positive. Alright, so what's the equation for velocity? I think that is what was given to us to begin with. Yep, 36t minus 3t square. 36t minus 3t square. So what's the value of t that we're going to use? We're going to use 18. So 36 times 18 minus 3 into 18 squared. Alright, so let's figure this out. 36 times 18 minus 3 into 18 squared. So we have minus 324. Minus 324. Okay, that's insane. But since we're talking about speed, so we're not going to write it with the minus sign. We're going to say speed is equals to 324 meters per second. Okay, so remember this, huh? The velocity is minus 324 meters per second, but since we're giving the speed, we're not going to write the minus sign. Okay, is that the end of the question? Yep, that's the end of the question. So what are your thoughts? Unless you're asked to do so. Unless you're asked to do so, only then do you have to make a motion diagram. Yeah, I know. Normally, when you find the speed as 324, you might think, oh, maybe I'm doing something wrong because 324 is too much. But, well, it is what it is. अच्छा, anyway, अब ये काफ़ी मैथ के लेवल का क्वेश्चन है तो ये मुझे करते हुए भी शर्म आ रही है. ठीक है, you guys can do this yourself. Okay. However, let me do some other difficult question. Let me do the question where you have to find out the distance traveled. Okay. This is a good question. All right. Beta, YouTube is to blame for that. Okay, I don't tell them what ads to run on my stream. Anyway, yeah, we'll do conversion of graphs as well. Don't worry. So here's a question which is from October-November 2015, and here's what it says. So it says the velocity v meters per second of a particle traveling in a straight line t seconds after passing through a fixed point O is given by so and so. Find the acceleration of the particle when t is equals to 3. Okay, you have velocity. How do you find out the acceleration? What do? You differentiate it. Okay, you do dv upon dt, and that is what gives you acceleration. So v is equals to 10 into 2 plus t to the power of minus 2. Alright, so you differentiate this. dv upon dt is equals to 10 into minus 2, so that's minus 20 into 2 plus t. Don't forget to take 1 away from the power, and this is the acceleration. Acceleration is equals to minus 20 over 2 plus t, the whole thing cube. Okay, so we need to find out the acceleration when t is equals to 3. Okay, so a is equals to minus 20 upon 2 plus 3 is 5. So let's take the cube of 5. So what do we get? Minus 20 divided by 125. So that's minus 4 upon 25. Let me see if that's correct. That's minus 0.16. Yep, that's correct. Minus 0.16 meter per second square. ठीक है, simple rules याद रखो, how to get to acceleration through velocity, how to get to velocity through acceleration, displacement and all of that. Okay, and you'll be fine inshallah. Explain why the particle never comes to rest. Okay, how would you explain why the particle never comes to rest? Okay, by being short and to the point. Okay, no need to write a story over here. By being short and to the point, how would you explain that the particle never comes to rest? No O-level math stream today. Tomorrow, inshallah, I'll do 2 O-level math streams. Yeah, I will do May June 2022 question. Don't worry about it. Okay, I do have that planned. Since t is always greater than 0, we cannot. So that's what you have to explain now. We can't be 0. Okay, we don't show speed. Okay, what you guys are saying is correct. I mean, I get that you guys have understood why it's not going to be equal to 0. Okay, but you're not being able to explain it correctly. So v is equals to what? 10 over 2 plus t, the whole thing square. Okay, so this is what you're going to say. You're going to say 2 plus t, the whole thing square, will always be positive. Therefore, velocity is never equal to 0. Okay, there you go. Or you can say no turning point, but it's a 1 mark question, so finding out the turning point would require a lot of manipulation. So just say that it's not possible. I mean, just use this method over here. Show that 2 plus t, the whole thing square, will always be positive. Therefore, v is never equal to 0. Okay. Okay, then it says find an expression for displacement of the particle from O after time t seconds. Okay, so we have the equation for velocity. It's 10 over 2. In fact, let's write it. Let's make it integration ready. Let's write it in a way so we can easily integrate it as well. 10 into 2 plus t, the whole thing to the power minus 2. Now, what do we do to velocity to find out the displacement? We integrate it. Okay, so the integral of velocity, as we know, is displacement. So displacement is equals to 10 into 2 plus t to the power of minus 2 plus 1. So that's minus 1. Divide by the new power. Okay, and then yeah, acceleration fraction में लिख सकते हैं, and then plus c. Okay, so the displacement becomes minus 10 over 2 plus t plus c. Okay, now since this particle is also starting its journey from O, that means when t is equals to 0, s equals to 0 as well. Okay, so when t equals to 0, s equals to 0. Again, at this point, if you make it a standard rule that c will also be equal to 0, you won't get away with it. So if you plug in 0 and in place of s, and t, or 0 in place of t as well, so here's what happens. This is what you get. So c actually turns out to be 5. So वो सारे लोग जिन्होंने बस रट्टा लगा लिया कि t 0 है और s 0 है तो c भी 0 होगा, well, here you'll have a price to pay. This is what you get. Okay, Now take a good look at it. Let me know if it's clear. Sir, can't we set v equals to 0 and then 0 equals to 10 and show its fall? Yeah, you can do that as well. You can set it equal to 0 and show that t is never a negative value. That's also correct. Okay. Sir, will we multiply it by half? Why would we multiply it by half? Why would we do that? Acha, okay, you said never mind. Repeat. Okay, I'll repeat. So if the question says, don't make this a standard rule. I think that's what you're asking me to repeat. That when t equals to 0, s equals to 0, c will also be equal to 0, because that's not going to be the case. Okay. Alright, so this is the equation for displacement. Okay. Acha, then the question says, find the distance traveled by the particle between t is equals to 3 and t equals to 8. Okay. So what are we going to do over here? How will I find out the distance traveled by the particle? Beta, only when it's starting from O, and also when it's starting from rest. Okay, that is only when we put t equals to 0. And if it's starting from O, then t equals to 0 and s equals to 0. Just go through the notes, okay? You'll find out. Yeah, when an object starts from 0, t equals to 0, s equals to 0. And I'm sure somewhere over here I must have written that when an object starts from rest, t equals to 0 and v equals to 0. Okay, so just go through the notes. Okay, so what was my question? I asked you guys a question abhi thodi der pehle. Yeah, how will I find out the distance traveled by the particle between t equals to 3 and t equals to 8? So answer that for me. Yes, that's correct. So someone's already given the answer that we will find out the distance traveled at, we'll find out how far the particle is at t equals to 8, and we'll find out how far the particle is at t equals to 5, and then subtract the 2. Achha, why are we doing that? We don't always get the liberty of doing that. In this case, we're doing it because the object does not turn. Remember, the distance is equal to the displacement for as long as the object doesn't turn. The second the object turns, the displacement and distance will be two different values. You will find out the notes in the description of this video. Okay, you'll find a Dropbox link. You can download it from there. Okay, or we can put limits as well. Now, plugging in limits means that we need to integrate it. Waise to we don't need to integrate it. Okay, we already have the equation for displacement. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to find out s at t is equals to 8. So let's do that. Let's find out the displacement at t is equals to 8. So minus 10 over 2 plus 8, which is 10, plus 5. So s equals to what? Minus 10 upon 10 is minus 1. Minus 1 plus 5 is 4. And then let's also find out the displacement at t is equals to 3. Okay. So s is equals to minus 10 over 2 plus 3, which is 5, plus 5. So that means s is equals to 5 minus 2, which is 3. So what's the distance traveled? The distance traveled is 4 minus 3, which is equal to 1 meter. Okay, now when the object turns, what do we do then? Don't worry about it. I'll solve a question like that as well. Okay, don't worry about that. How do we know if we have okay, so remember this, if the velocity is equal to 0, okay, if in between the journey the velocity is equal to 0, that means that the object is turning. Again, go through the notes. Remember, I've written it over here. When the velocity is equal to 0, there are two possibilities. Either it's the end of the journey or it has turned. In order to find out if the particle is turning or not, equate v to 0. So go through the notes, you'll find it there, inshallah. Please what? Please what? Okay, khair. So like I said, we will do a question where the object is turning so that you guys can find the answer to your question. अच्छा एक काम करते हैं ज़रा ये वाला क्वेश्चन करते हैं ठीक है. So this question is fairly recent. It's from May June 2021, paper 2, variant 2. Okay, we'll do graphs as well. Don't worry about it. We'll do graphs as well. First, let's do as many word problems as possible. Then we'll do graphs as well. Okay, like I said, don't worry. Now this question says a particle moves in a straight line so that t seconds after passing through a fixed point O, its velocity v meters per second is given by so and so. Find the distance between the two positions of instantaneous rest. Okay, so we need to find out the distance between the particle's two positions of instantaneous rest. Okay, now first of all, we need to, in order to do that, we need to first find out what are the values of t when the particle comes to rest. Okay, so let's do that. Whenever the particle comes to rest, what happens? The velocity is equal to 0. Okay, remember that. Whenever the particle comes to rest, the velocity is equal to 0. Okay, so 3t square minus 30t plus 72 equals to 0. Okay, so let's divide this by 3. So we have t square minus 10t plus 24, I guess. Yeah. इसको मिडिल टर्म ब्रेकिंग से सॉल्व कर लो. t square minus 6t minus 4t plus 24. And then when you solve this further, you will have t is equals to 6 and t is equals to 4. Okay, so these are the two values of t when the particle comes to rest. Okay, now we need to find out the distance apart, the distance between the two distance between the particles' two positions of instantaneous rest. Okay, now the equation that I have is for velocity. I need the equation for distance. Okay, which basically means I need it for displacement. So what can I do to velocity to find distance or displacement? I can integrate it. So integrating velocity becomes 3t cube upon 3 minus 30t square upon 2 plus 72t plus c, and that's what displacement is equal to. Okay. Now since the particle starts its journey from O, okay, so that means when t is equals to 0, s equals to 0. Okay, and in that case 0 equals to 0 minus 0 plus 0. Okay, not really, no, not that it makes a difference, but yeah, anyway. So now c is equal to 0. So the displacement is equals to what? T cube minus 15 t square plus 72 t. Okay, so this is what the displacement is equal to. This is what the displacement is equal to. Now I need to find out the distance between the particles' two positions of instantaneous rest. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to plug in the two values of t. That means I'm going to plug in t equals to 4 and I'm going to plug in t equals to 6. Okay, so let's do that. If I plug in 4, here's what happens. 4 cube minus 15 into 4 square plus 72 into 4. Okay, so let's work this out. 4 cube minus 15 minus 15 into 4 square plus 72 times 4. So this is equal to 112, and let's also find out the displacement when t is equals to 6. Okay, so keep everything as it is in your calculator, just replace 4 with 6. So we get s is equals to 108 meter. Now how will I find out the distance apart? All I need to do is take the difference. So just take the difference. 112 minus 108 means that they are 4 meters apart. Okay, and there you go. That's the answer. Yes, it's a look. If you're solving a quadratic equation, do show some working. Okay, that's what I would recommend. We could have done directly with definite integral with boundaries 6 and 4. Yeah, you could have done that as well. Okay, but the thing is, you would have had to integrate it anyway, right? So when you integrate it, what do you get? You get the equation for displacement. Okay, and then what are you going to do? Where are you going to plug in the 4 and 6? You're going to plug in the equation of displacement only. Okay, so it's not exactly directly. It would have been the same working, just structured differently. Okay, and yes, you wouldn't have had to go through the pain of finding out c, but that wasn't exactly like the pain of going off. That wasn't exactly painful. Okay, it was pretty easy. No, I don't. I don't have a list of formulas. Or one question: why didn't we get t equals to 0 when we did middle term breaking, as the question says? Okay, the question did not say that it's starting from rest. Okay, the question did not say that it's starting from rest. That's why we didn't get t equals to 0. So when the object is starting from O, at that point, t equals to 0 and displacement is equal to 0. But only when the object is starting from rest is the velocity equal to 0 when t is equals to 0. See my question. Can I use quadratic formula? Yeah, go ahead. What kind of a question is that? Yeah, of course you can use the quadratic formula. Let's say using the quadratic formula to solve something like this is kind of silly, no? But there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, not that you're going to lose marks or anything. But do middle term breaking. Yeah, c is not always 0. Okay. Okay, so it says find the acceleration of the particle when t is equals to 2. So we have the equation of velocity, right? 3t squared minus 30t plus 72. So let's write that down. 3t squared minus 30t plus 72. Sir, my answer is coming minus 4. Oh bhai, to minus hata ke plus karke likh do. I mean, how difficult is that? Distance मांगा ना, distance apart. So just remove the minus sign. dv upon dt is equals to 60 minus 30. Okay, so here is acceleration, and now we need to find out the acceleration when t is equals to 2. So 6 into 2 minus 30. So let's see what do we get. So 6 into 2 is 12. 12 minus 30 is minus 18 meter per second square. So there you go. That's your answer. Now let's do a few questions of graphs as well. पहले इसको ज़रा देख लें आप लोग और से. And then, like I said, let's do a few questions of graphs as well. ये करते हैं चलें. Yeah, this is a good question. So this is from October-November 2017, paper 12. Okay, and yes, I will do the May-June 22 question as well. Don't worry about it. Huh? Did I do that? Okay, that wasn't intentional. Anyway. हसनैन वेक्टर्स की स्ट्रीम मैं कल करूँगा इंशाल्लाह. Okay. Now this question says that the diagram shows a displacement time graph of a particle p which moves in a straight line such that t seconds after leaving a fixed point O, its displacement from O is x meters. Alright, so here you can see is the displacement. On the axis below, draw the velocity time graph of p. Okay, so what is it of the displacement time graph that gives us the velocity? बेटा जब नमाज होगी तब मैं ब्रेक दूंगा. अभी यहाँ पे मगरिब का वक्त नहीं हुआ. Okay, मगरिब is probably in another 10 minutes I guess. So that is when I'll give you guys a break. Okay, अगर आपकी respective city में हो गई है तो I'm afraid I can't do anything. What you can do is you can take a break yourself and go pray. V equals to d upon t. Gradient. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Gradient. It's the gradient that is equal to what? That's equal to the velocity. Okay, gradient, remember this, make a mental note of it. Gradient of a velocity time graph is equal to what? Gradient of a displacement time graph is equal to velocity. Okay, I'll repeat, gradient of a velocity time graph is equal, displacement time graph या distance time graph is equal to velocity. Again, you'll find this in the notes as well. Okay, notes में ये graph of graphs के conversion भी हैं. Okay, so yeah, everything's there. So from 0 to 10, we have a different velocity. Okay, so from 0 to 10, the object is traveling at a different velocity. and then from 10 to 30 the object is traveling at a different velocity. Okay, so I'm going to color code it for you guys. So this is 50. To find out the velocity from t equals to 0 to t equals to 10, here's what we're going to do. We're going to find out the gradient, which means 50 minus 0 over 10 minus 0, so that's equal to 5. So that means for the first 10 seconds, the velocity is what? The velocity is 5 meters per second. Okay, so we make a straight line. For the first 10 seconds, the velocity is 5 meters per second. Okay, okay. Then we highlight this line. Okay, so then for the next 20 seconds, we need to find out the velocity. So let's do that over here from 10 to 30. Yeah, from 10 to 30. So for that, we're going to do 60 minus 50 over 30 minus 10. So what's 60 minus 50? That's 10. And what's 30 minus 10? That's 20. I see. Let me double check. 10 upon 20. Yep, that's correct, which is equal to 0 0.5. 1 upon 2 or 0 0.5. Doesn't matter how you write it. So that means from 10 to 30, the velocity is 0 0.5. Okay, so there you go. And you don't have to join these two lines together. Okay, that's not necessary. Either question में एक और भी सवाल आया हुआ है जिसमें they haven't joined the lines. They have joined the lines actually. So whether you do it or not, it's not going to make a difference. Okay. So there you go, fellas. That's your answer. Okay, now this was a pretty easy question. We'll do some more complex questions as well, especially the May June 2022 question. Okay, that was quite a complex question. But this question has more parts in it, so let's get through that first. So it says a particle Q moves in a straight line such that its velocity v meters per second t seconds after passing through a fixed point O is given by so and so. Find the velocity of Q when t is equals to 0. Okay, so this is just free marks. The examiner is just, I don't know, was too lazy to think of, I don't know, maybe a challenging question. So all you got to do is plug in 0 in place of t. So v is equals to 3. E to the power 0 is going to be 1. Okay, so keep that in mind. And 3 upon 2 into 0 क्या होगा? 3 upon 2 into 0 वो तो आपका सीधा सीधा 0 ही हो जाएगा. Okay, so yeah, number 19. So that's equal to 3 meters per second. ठीक है? Okay. Then part 2. Part 2 says find the value of t when the acceleration of q is 0. Okay, so how do we find out the acceleration? Through velocity. We differentiate it. dv upon dt gives us acceleration. So let's differentiate velocity. dv upon dt is equals to, it's a good idea to write down the equation of velocity. 3e to the power minus 5t plus 3 upon 2t. Okay, now we're differentiating it. So 3e to the power minus 5t. Then we multiply it by the differential of the power because that's how you differentiate exponential functions. Plus 3 upon 2. Okay, so this is acceleration, which is equal to 3e to the power minus 5t. No, wait a minute. 3 into minus 5 is going to be minus 15. Minus 15 e to the power minus 5t plus 3 upon 2. Okay, so we need to find out the value of t when the acceleration is equal to 0. So that means अब हमने इसको equal to 0 करना है. So minus 15 e to the power of minus 5t plus 3 upon 2 equals to 0. So that means 15 e to the power minus 5t is equals to 3 upon 2. So I've skipped a step over here. I've taken it across, okay, and crossed out the minus sign as well. Now, let's make e to the power minus 5t the subject. That means we'll have to take 15 across. And before we do that, let's simplify. 3 1s are, 3 5s are. Okay, now if you take 15 across, it gets multiplied by 2 and it becomes 10. So e to the power minus 5t is equals to 1 upon 10. Now how will I solve this? What concept do I have to use to solve this? Sir, can you please do a vectors? Yeah, I will do a vector stream. Don't worry about it. Okay, tomorrow most likely. Yep, we'll use ln. Thank you. So let's use ln. So we apply ln on both sides. So we have e minus 5t ln e, which is equal to ln 1 upon 10. Okay, so now t is equals to ln 1 upon 10 divided by minus 5. Okay, so let's work this out, see what do we get. Ln 1 divided by 10 divided by minus 5. So we're looking at t is equals to 0.461. So there you go, fellas. That's your answer. Sir, minus 3 upon 2. नहीं तो वो मैंने कहा ना, मैंने एक step skip कर दिया. I crossed out the minus sign as well. I skipped a step. If you take it across the equals to sign, it becomes positive. Okay, it becomes negative and two negatives cancel out each other. Alright. Add math के vectors की stream करते हैं. सही जा रहे हो बेटा. मुझे लग रहा है आप अभी सो के उठे हैं. Okay, now here's part 3. Part 3 says find the distance of Q from O when t is equals to 0.5. Okay. So here we have, did we have the equation for displacement? No, we didn't. Okay. So we have velocity. What do I do to velocity in order to turn it into distance? We integrate it. Okay. So integral of velocity gives us displacement. All right. Now let's integrate this. So displacement equals to 3 e to the power minus 5t divided by minus 5 plus 3 upon 2 t squared divided by 2. Okay, and then plus c. All right. Now since this object started its journey from a fixed point O, so that means at that point when t is equals to 0, the displacement was also equal to 0. Okay, so 0 is equals to 3 upon minus 3 upon 5 e to the power of 0 plus 3 upon 4 into 0 square plus c. Okay, so 0 is equals to minus 3 upon 5 plus 0 plus c. So that means c is equals to 3 upon 5. We'll take a namaz break after this question. Like I said, don't worry about it. So now the displacement is, so let's use the space efficiently. Displacement is minus 3 upon 5 e to the power minus 5t plus 3 upon 4 t square plus 3 upon 5. Okay. Okay, now. So it says find the distance of Q from O when t is equals to 0.5. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to plug in 0.5 in place of t. Okay. So S is equals to minus 3 upon 5 e to the power minus 5 into 0.5 plus 3 upon 4 into 0.5 square plus 3 upon 5. Okay. Sir, what is the one thing which we can do to return? Oh, you don't have to do that. Well, yeah, there is one thing you can do, and that is you can remember me in your prayers. I'd like that. Okay, so I'm plugging in 0.5 in place of t. Okay, plus 3 upon 4 into 0.5 square plus 3 upon 5. Okay, so we have 0.7382, which we will lock at 0.738 meters. There you go. That's your answer. I think, you know how I, at the beginning of the question said, okay, this is such an easy question, the examiner is feeling too lazy to challenge you guys. I think that was just the calm before the storm, because it got complicated later on. Khair. Anyway. 0.4 seconds पे तो stop करेगा? नहीं, ये तो stop ही नहीं कर रहा. 0. Oh, देखो इधर acceleration 0 है. Now remember this. Just because acceleration is 0 does not mean that the particle is at rest. Okay, the acceleration could be 0 because of two reasons. One is, yes, the object is at rest, but the other is that it's moving at a constant velocity as well. Okay, so 0.4 पे stop नहीं कर रहा. 0.461 पे the acceleration is equal to 0. All right, so I hope that answers your question. Okay, shall we stop? I mean, shall we take a break? Yeah, maximum velocity is also when the acceleration is equal to 0. That's correct. Uh, Khatija, good morning. Good to have you. Yeah, Victor's stream is already uploaded. Go to check the AdMath live streams playlist. You'll find it there. Okay, so let's take a 5-7 minute break, 10 minute break. In fact, क्या time हो रहा है? 7:17 हो रहा है. Yeah, I was about to. Okay, अच्छा कल पेपर है. सही बताएं. That's news for me. क्या कह रहे हैं आप? um, आपकी क्या बात है जो मैंने नहीं सुनी? um, खैर, let's take a break. I'll answer your questions when I'm back. Okay. So, chalo, see you guys in what? In 10 minutes, 10-11 minutes. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. So, what did I miss? Did I miss anything important? No, I don't think I missed anything important. Okay. Leak tomorrow's paper. Okay, here's an interesting question. How much would you be willing to pay for someone to tell you exactly what's coming in the exam tomorrow? Like, what's the maximum you would pay? $10,000 taka, that's around what? Nah, that's not too much. Okay. That brings me to my follow-up question. Where exactly are you going to arrange that money from? Okay, who do we have here? So I would never cheat in any exam, either live or simple sheet of paper. Okay. अच्छी बात है, ऐसे ही होना चाहिए. Yeah, that's true. You wouldn't really enjoy passing because you cheated, you know. There's no satisfaction in that. I didn't say that I have I know what's coming in the exam. I didn't say that. Okay, chale. Now I know. Anyway, let's get back to work. So let's solve the May-June 2020 paper. Okay. Well, Legos sound a great deal. Well, I don't know what's coming in the paper, so you can't bribe me with Legos. We all know, you know what's coming. Acha. How do you know that? I've hidden my screen so that I don't actually end up showing you guys tomorrow's exam. That's why I've hidden the iPad screen. Okay, khair. So here's the question. This is from May-June 2012, paper 1, variant 2. Okay. Now it's not that difficult question. It's just that it's just that it has a lot of graphs in it. Okay. Anyway, so here's what it says. It says in this question, all lengths are in kilometers and time is in hours. Okay, so don't forget that. A particle P moves in a straight line such that its displacement S from a fixed point at time t is given by so and so. अच्छा मजाक करो, मुझे नहीं पता कि कल क्या आ रहा है, ठीक है? Even if someone offered to tell me, I wouldn't accept that offer. Okay. Now, so here's a particle P. okay, which starts from fixed point at time t seconds, okay, and yeah, find the values of t for which the velocity of p is 0. Okay, so we need to find out the value of t when the velocity is equal to 0. Achha, did you notice something about this question? In this question, it does not say that it's starting from O or anything like that. Okay, so we will not just naturally assume that it's starting from O. Okay, it's starting from a fixed point which we don't know anything about. Okay. Khair. What effect will that have on the latter parts? Let's see. Maybe not a single effect. Okay. So we need to find out the values of t for which the velocity of p is equal to 0. Okay. So that means we need to differentiate displacement, and that's how we're going to get velocity. Okay. So s equals to what? S is equals to t plus 2 into t minus 5, the whole thing square. So what's u is equals to? U is equals to t plus 2, which means u prime is going to be equal to just 1. And what about v? V is equals to t minus 5, the whole thing square. So v prime is going to be equal to 2 into t minus 5. Okay. So notice how the question says find the values of t. What does that mean? That means we're likely to end up with multiple values. Okay. So, sir, you did the question on last live stream. I did this question on the last live stream. Okay, I don't know. Maybe I did or maybe I didn't. Anyway, I'm just doing it again. Pay close attention. So vu prime minus uv prime is going to be the differential. Okay, so vu prime means t minus 5, the whole thing square, plus uv prime means t plus 2 into 2. Now I'll take this 2 and write it over here into t minus 5. Okay. Now if the velocity is equal to 0, so that means we're going to take this equation and we're going to equate it to 0. Okay. Now we can take t minus 5 common. Now you can expand it and then make a quadratic equation out of it and then solve, but if you just take t minus 5 common and then solve it, you'll end up making your life a whole lot easier. Okay, so if you take t minus 5, just t minus 5, not t minus 5 the whole thing square common, but if you end up taking t minus 5 common, here's what happens. You have t minus 5 to the power of 1 inside the bracket plus 2 into t plus 2. Okay, this is what you have inside the bracket. So that means isko zara simplify kar lete hain. So this becomes t minus 5 plus 2t plus 4. Okay. So t plus 2t is 3t. So 3t minus 1 and t minus 5 equals to 0. Okay. So we don't even have to do middle term breaking now. So that means t is equals to 5 and the other value of t that we will get is 1 upon 3. So these are the two values of t when the velocity is equal to 0. Okay. Acha. Now one thing that I will recommend is, notice over here what do we have to do in part B. It says on the axis draw the displacement time graph for, so we have to make the displacement time graph for p 0 to 6 stating the coordinates of the points where the graph meets the coordinate axis. Okay, so what do we have to do over here? We have to make the displacement time graph. अच्छा, जो मैं आप लोगों को पहले suggest करा था, मैं ये suggest करा था कि आप इसको ऐसे भी कर सकते थे कि आप इसको expand करते हैं, because a lot of people have this confusion that why did I take common, what happens if I don't take common. Well, you will get the same answer. Okay, so t minus 5 the whole thing square, 2 into t square minus 5t plus 2t minus 10. Okay, and t square minus, because in the exam you would prefer to solve questions the conventional way, the way that you have been doing it. I wouldn't suggest that during the exam you do experiments. Okay, so 2 gets multiplied by t square minus 3t minus 10. Okay, so this if you simplify becomes 3t square, and then minus 10 minus 6 will be minus 16t, and 25 minus 20 would be plus 5. Okay, so this is the velocity, and then you could have equated this to 0 and solved for the values of t. You would have gotten the same answer. Okay. Okay, by the way, I saw the paper when you closed the screen when I could see. Alright, go. That's brilliant. Anyway, so it says on the axis draw the displacement time graph for p, which is from 0 to 6. Okay, so remember we have to make a displacement time graph over here. Alright, so displacement time graph, what's the equation for displacement? This is what the equation for displacement is. T plus 2, no, square is not on t plus 2, the square is on t minus 5. Okay, so this is the equation for displacement. Now we need to draw this from 0 to 6 and we need to state the coordinates of the points where the graph meets the coordinate axis. Now this requires good knowledge of cubic graphs, okay, because in this, what will the coefficient of t cube be? It will be positive 1, and if the coefficient of t cube is positive 1, that means the graph is going to be something like this. Okay, make sure that you know this concept very well, that this is what the graph is going to be like, because the coefficient of x cube, which in this case is basically t cube, is positive 1. Okay, and then if you find out the x-intercept, one x-intercept would be minus 2 and the other two x-intercepts would be 5 and 5 again. Why 5 and 5 again? Because if you expand this, not like open up the bracket, but this can actually be written as t plus 2 into t minus 5 into t minus 5. Okay, and then if you use this equation to solve for the x-intercepts, solving for the x-intercepts basically means that equating it to 0. So you will have three values of t, one would be minus 2 and the other two values would be 5. Now t equals to minus 2 is not something that we can consider, because notice that we only have to make it from 0 to 6 and mathematically it doesn't make sense either. Okay, because time cannot be negative. And is the दो 5 आने का क्या मतलब है? दो 5 आने का मतलब ये that it's going to be tangent at 5. Okay, so that means the curve is going to be tangent at this point over here. Okay, so we have the x-intercept in order. The next thing we need to find out is the y-intercept. So how do you find out the y-intercept? For the y-intercept, you plug in 0 in place of x, which in this case is t. So 0 plus 2 into 0 minus 5, the whole thing square. So s is equals to 25 times 2, which is equal to what? Which is equal to 50. So that means somewhere over here is the y-intercept, which is 50. So far we know three things. We know the shape, we know the y-intercept, and we know the x-intercept. Okay, so this is all that we know so far. Yes, the double derivative of the distance is acceleration. Achha. Another thing is that notice that the velocity was equal to 0 at t is equals to 1 upon 3. So that means at t equals to 1 upon 3, the displacement must have been maximum. So that means when I'm drawing the curve at 1 upon 3, although you're not supposed to show that, okay, the question is not asking you to show that, but बेहतर ये है कि आप दिखा दो, okay, you don't want to just keep on guessing कि पता नहीं इसके marks हैं या नहीं, so it's best that you show that. At 1 upon 3, notice that the velocity was equal to 0. That means at 1 upon 3, this graph must have turned. Okay, now you don't need to find out the corresponding velocity, but yeah, it's a good idea to show that this graph turned at 1 upon 3. So that means approximately यहाँ पे कहीं पे इसने turn किया होगा, and then it must have come back down and then turned at 5 again and then gone back up. And there you go. That's your answer. ठीक है? Okay, now in case you're wondering what exactly is this point, this is the point where the velocity was equal to 0. Remember, the velocity was equal to 0 at t is equals to 1 upon 3, and here is another point where the velocity was equal to 0, t is equals to 5. In a displacement time graph, the velocity being equal to 0 means that it's turning. Okay. Okay, next, part C. Part C says, on the axis below, draw the velocity time graph for p for 0 to 6. Okay, stating the coordinates of the points where the graph meets the coordinate axis. Okay, so now we have to draw the velocity time graph. Okay, so the expanded version of the velocity will come in handy over here. The expanded version of velocity was this. Okay, so let's write this down over here. Here it is. Okay, now what kind of a curve is this? This is going to be a minimum curve. What's the y-intercept? The y-intercept is 5. And what else you need to do? You need to find out the x-intercepts. Now the good news is we've already found the x-intercepts when we equated velocity to 0, and we got 1 upon 3 and 5. Okay, so earlier we got 1 upon 3 and 5 when we equated velocity to 0. So that means we now have the x-intercepts as well. So these are the 3 points through which our curve is going to pass. Now here the question has not asked you to find out the turning point or anything. It only says that you need to state the coordinates of the points where the graph meets the coordinate axis. So no need to find out the turning point. The x-intercepts and the y-intercept is good enough. Okay. अच्छा 1/3 थोड़ा आगे हो गया actually. Yeah, 1/3. Taro, let me make this again. Although it's a sketch, but you know, for my own satisfaction. 1/3 since it's 0.6, so it's going to be somewhere over here. And then 5 to sahi tha. There you go. Displacement हमेशा turning point होगा when... No, you're not supposed to show the turning point, okay? In this question, you're not supposed to show the turning point. Okay, then it says write down an expression for acceleration of p at time t. So again, notice how nice the question is. It's asking you to first write down the expression for acceleration. So what do we do to find acceleration? What do we do to velocity? We differentiate it. So this becomes 6t minus 16. Okay, so 6t minus 16 is the acceleration. So let's write that down nicely. And now it's asking you to make the graph. So 6t minus 16 means that it's going to be an upward sloping line. Okay. Let's read the question. Hence, on the axis below, draw the acceleration time graph for p from 0 to 6, stating the coordinates of the points where the graph meets the coordinate axes. Again, so 6t minus 16 is what acceleration is equal to 0. If you plug in t as 0, you get a as minus 16. So that means you know what the y-intercept is. It's minus 16. And then if you plug in a as 0, let's see what happens. That means 6t minus 16 equals to 0. So t is equals to 16 upon 6, which means t is equals to, simplify this using the table of 2. So 8 upon 3. So 8 upon 3 is approximately 2 point something. So यहाँ पे कहीं पे 8 upon 3 होगा. Now this, like I said, is going to be a straight line. You can tell by looking at the equation that it's the equation of a straight line. So there you go. That is your answer. इसका और तो कोई पार्ट नहीं है? नहीं है. Do I think the paper will be difficult? I can't say anything about that. Can it be difficult? Yes, it can definitely be difficult. Will it be difficult? I don't know. So that's my take on it. Sir, we have to plug in random values, but yeah. So you don't even have to plug in random values. Just find out 2 points. Okay, when you're making a straight line, just find out 2 points. That's good enough. But in the case of a curve, you need to know what the x-intercept is. You need to know what the y-intercept is, and that's it. Okay. I can say, look at the paper. Yeah, when the x value is repeating, the graph is going to be tangent to the x-axis. Okay. Will I do live streams for October, November? I don't know. I don't know if I will do live streams for October, November. I really can't say. Okay. So let's do some more questions. We have time. Okay. No, that smirk was not, has nothing to do with the difficulty level of the paper. Another topic? No, not another topic. Okay, this is a good question. Let's do this. चलो ये 2 सवाल करते हैं फिर एंड करते हैं, ठीक है. These 2 are good questions. Sir, how do we... I've already answered that question, beta. You don't have to return the favor. You can just remember me in your prayers. That will work. Okay. I am good, alhamdulillah. No, the stream hasn't ended. किसने बोल दिया भाई stream has ended? We're doing 2 more questions. Okay. Yeah, the last question had 3 graphs in it. In fact, what I'll do is I'll attach this over here, so you guys have a solution. I mean, you guys have the solution to it as well. Okay, there you go. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so as I was saying, let's do question कौन सा था? Yeah, let's do this. So greatest distance of P from O, what does that mean? Okay, I'm gonna pretend that I didn't read that. Thank you, thank you. ये बताएं, at what center is your exam tomorrow? Anyone who has their center at one of the schools in Phase 8, Karachi? Find the greatest distance of P from O. What happens at greatest distance? That's what my question is. What happens at greatest distance? Yes, turning point. Yeah, that's correct. Turning point, we're going to set that equal to 0. In other words, remember this, at greatest distance, the velocity equals to 0. Okay? At greatest distance, the velocity is equal to 0. DHA CSS. Okay. Okay, I might come to DHA CSS. Acha, this is October November 2012 paper 13. Okay. All right. Now, so here's what it says. It says a particle P moves along the x-axis such that its distance x meters from the origin O at time t seconds is given by so and so. Okay. For t is greater than or equal to 0. Find the greatest distance of P from O. Okay. So at greatest distance, like I said, the velocity is equal to 0, but you need to first find out the velocity. Okay. So how do we find out the velocity? First, let's differentiate it. Okay. So t over t square plus 1. And how do we differentiate it? We'll differentiate it using product rule. Okay. Quotient rule actually. So u is equals to t, which means u prime is going to be equal to 1. V is equals to t square plus 1, which means v prime is going to be 2t. So vu prime plus uv prime, minus uv prime actually. So vu prime means t square plus 1 minus uv prime means 2t square. Okay, and don't forget to divide it by v square, which means t square plus 1 the whole thing square. So this is what velocity is equal to. Now velocity is equals to 0 because at greatest distance, so if you replace v with 0 and cross multiply, so now you're looking at t square plus 1 minus 2t square, which is equal to 0. So that means we're looking at 1 minus t square equals to 0, which means t square equals to 1, which theoretically means t is equals to plus minus 1, but since we're talking about time over here, so we're only going to go with t equals to positive 1. ठीक है? Okay, so we have the value of t. What do we do next? Let me check the answer. One year. Acha, that's not the final answer. Okay, we need to find out the greatest distance. Okay, so now we're going to plug this back into the equation. So 1 over 1 square plus 1 That means x is equals to 1 upon 2. So this is the greatest distance of P from O. Okay. So then comes part 2. Part 2 says find the acceleration of P at the instant when P is at its greatest distance from O. So we've already found out the instant when T is at its greatest distance from O, that is basically 1 second. Now we need to find out the acceleration at that point. Okay, so we have the equation for velocity. Okay, what was the equation for velocity? It was 1 minus t square over t square plus 1 the whole thing square. अब इसको मज़ीद डिफ्रेंशिएट करने के लिए हमें क्या करना पड़ेगा? हमें इसको वापस quotient rule लगाना पड़ेगा. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. U is equals to 1 minus t square, so u prime is equals to 0 minus 2t. V is equals to t square plus 1 the whole thing square, which means V prime is equals to 2 into t square plus 1 to the power 1 multiplied by 2t. Okay. Can you tell the logic behind V equals to 0? Okay, so the logic behind V equals to 0, think of it this way. If you toss a ball up in the air, okay, so the maximum, at the maximum point, its velocity is going to be what? Its velocity is going to be equal to 0. So just before it starts coming down, for a fraction of a second, it's stationary. Okay, and that at that point when it's stationary, the velocity is what? The velocity is equal to 0. So from the starting point, it's reached its maximum displacement. Okay. All right, so I hope that answers your question. So vu prime minus uv prime upon v square. So vu prime, that means t square plus 1 the whole thing square multiplied by minus 2t minus uv prime. So minus uv prime means 1 minus t square into, अच्छा इसको multiply कर लो हाथ के हाथ. So 4t into t square minus 1. Now don't worry about simplifying this or anything, because ultimately you have to plug in the value. So t square plus 1 the whole thing square, so it will become power 4. Okay. Now like I said, since you have to plug in the value ultimately, so you don't need to worry about a thing. Okay. So the value that we have to plug in is 1. Okay, so let's do that. 1 square plus 1 is going to be 2, and that's what we're squaring, which then gets multiplied by minus 2. Okay, minus 1 minus t square basically means 1 minus 1, which becomes 0, and then everything else just later on becomes irrelevant. Okay, in the denominator we have the following: 1 square plus 1 is 2, so we have 2 to the power of 4. All right, so notice how everything just sort of simplified. Now we have minus 8 upon 16, so acceleration is equals to minus 1 upon 2 meter per second square. And there you go, fellas. That's your answer. Mazaya? Sir, if I just joined, if it says the distance in the third second, no, the distance in the third second means from t equals to 2 to t equals to 3. Okay, that's what it means when it says distance traveled in the third second. Okay. It's like, when does your second year of, or let's say when you're 17 years old, so that means you're in your 17th year, right? So that means from 16 to 17. Okay. When are you in your 17th year? From 16 to 17. Okay. Okay. Question number 6. So now I'd like you guys to solve this question. So should you study in the morning of the exam? No. Do not study in the morning, just go through your notes. Okay, go through your notes, watch videos if you have to, but don't put yourself in a situation where you test yourself. Okay, जो चीज़ें मैंने मैथ के लिए कही थी वो ऐड मैथ के लिए भी अप्लाई होती हैं. I'll make a video on it as well. Okay, but for the most part it's the same. Just don't put yourself in a position where you end up testing yourself. Not a good idea. Thank you, Abdullah. Okay, someone's already answered that. For t. Okay, okay, I get it. Yeah. So basically, here's acceleration, which is 4 minus 2t. Okay, and it says find the value of t. Achha, okay, now this question. Okay, now I remember why I wanted to solve this question. So it says the particle which moves in a straight line passes through O with a velocity of 12 meters per second. Okay, now that means when t is equals to O, the velocity equals to what? The velocity equals to 12. Okay, so this is not the question where you take t equals to 0 and v equals to 0 as well, because at O the particle already has a velocity of 12 meters per second. Okay, so that means when we are integrating for velocity, here's what we get. We get v is equals to 4t minus 2t square upon 2 plus c. Now, like I said, in order to find out c, these are the values that we're going to use. So v equals to 12, this becomes 0 minus t into 0 square plus, no wait, not t into 0, what am I doing? Minus 0 square plus c. Okay, so 12 is equals to 0 minus 0 plus c. So what's c equal to? C is equals to 12. Okay, so velocity is equals to 4t minus t square plus 12. So this is what the velocity is equal to. Okay, now you need to find out the value of t when the particle comes to instantaneous rest. So that means now you're going to equate this equal to 0. So 4t minus t square plus 12 equals to 0. Let's write this nicely. So this becomes t square minus 4t minus 12 equals to 0. So factors of 12 minus 12 that give us minus 4. So it's going to be minus 6t plus 2t minus 12 equals to 0. इसको solve कर लो. So t equals to 6 आएगा or t equals to minus 2 आएगा. Obviously we're not going to go with minus 2. We're going to go with 6. Okay. Then it says find the distance of O from the find the distance from O of the particle when it comes to instantaneous rest. Okay. Distance from O of the particle when it comes to instantaneous rest. So that means we have the equation for velocity, which is 4t minus t square plus 12. So how do we get to distance? We get to distance by integrating it. So this is equal to 4t square upon 2 minus t cube upon 3 plus 12t plus c. Now because the particle is starting from O, that means at t equals to 0, the displacement is equal to 0. Okay, so when t equals to 0, the displacement is equals to 0. So 0 is equals to 2 into 0 square minus 0 cube upon 3 plus 12 into 0 plus c. Okay, so 0 is equals to 0 minus 0 plus 0 plus c. So c is equals to 0. Okay, so the displacement is equals to 2t square minus t cube upon 3 plus 12t. Yeah, and now just plug in 6 over here. So 2 into 6 square minus 6 cube upon 3 plus 12 into 6. Let's see, what do we get? Let's see, what do we get? Two into 6 square minus 6 cube upon 3 plus 12 into 6. So we get 72, which is the correct answer. Okay. Sir, calculation for displacement. Okay. Dekho, distance from a fixed point is displacement. Alright, so don't confuse between the two. When the question tells you a distance from a fixed point, then that means displacement only. Okay. Displacement vector same as velocity vector? No, displacement vector is not the same as velocity vector. Okay, so looks like we have an imposter. Okay, now नहीं यूनिट लिखना इम्पॉर्टेंट नहीं है. Okay, no need to practice anything right now. Okay, just relax. Like I said, just go over the notes. Okay. No, I don't have combined notes. I'm sorry. जो भी notes हैं वो मैं stream के साथ share कर देता हूँ. I don't have combined notes. Okay. Yeah. Last minute tips मैं अभी video बना रहा हूँ last minute tips पे. ठीक है तो वो देख लेना. But in that video, I'm not gonna honestly say anything that I haven't said already. All right. So just get a good night's sleep. If there's anything that's extremely important right now, and that is getting a good night's sleep. Chale. So that's it, boys and girls. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Yeah, I'll make a video tomorrow. Do keep track of all the topics that you're tested in. Okay, that way we'll be able to prepare for paper 2 much better. Okay, we'll have an idea as to what are the topics that we're testing. What are the topics that we can expect in paper 2. Okay, so that's it. Take care, everyone. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And yeah, good luck. Make me proud. Make your parents and your teachers proud. I'll make a video where I will give you guys some last minute tips. Again, nothing. If let's say that video is not out by the time you guys are, I mean, if you guys end up falling asleep and that video is not out, then it's okay. Just go to sleep, watch it in the morning. I'm not going to say anything that I haven't said already. Okay? So, chale, take care. See you guys tomorrow, inshallah. Good luck once again. Allah Hafiz.